Welcome to the kingdom. I'm Chris, and this is Good Enough Gaming. Howdy folks, and welcome to this video about the new world book for OnePageRules that was released on April 9th. I was really excited to hear about this book when it was announced, and so I grabbed it the day it came out and worked through it the rest of the week. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't able to binge read it in a day, but I've managed to get through it now from cover to cover. My overall reaction? I like it. I think it's a great step forward in turning OnePageRules into a really fleshed out miniature war game system. I know that when I did my video comparing the lore of OnePageRules and 40K, that many of the viewers said one of the things they liked best about OnePageRules was that it didn't have any kind of lore canon, and it was a completely blank slate that they could use to build whatever they wanted. Now to those folks, you can lay your fears to rest. The world book leaves lots, and I mean lots, of room to develop and generate whatever your imagination can come up with. Now, me personally, I like having a bedrock or a foundation of lore that provides a common ground for all the players of the hobby. In fact, allow me to go off on a little bit of a tangent here for a second, but I promise I'll bring it back around. So, when I was a kid, back in the 80s, there was no internet. And while there was TV, movies, and video games, there were only a few channels, a few movie studios, and two major competing video game systems. That meant there was a lot of shared experience. Most of my friends watched the real Ghostbusters and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles after school just like I did. Most adults had seen at least one of the newest movie releases. And most popular TV shows were popular because a huge portion of the population all watched it the night before. And the next day at work or at school, you had common ground with everybody else at your work, in your grade, or wherever. You had something you could talk about. You could assume they had seen the show. You could assume they had seen the movie, and you could talk about it. Now, with the advent of the internet, and especially streaming services, two people could watch 30 hours of TV and movies every week for a month and conceivably not watch the same show. Today, if you ask someone, what show do you watch? There's a very good chance that they've never seen it. But when I was growing up, you just assumed every kid watched Saturday morning cartoons, that most people saw that new release in the theaters. And because all my friends and I had that shared pop culture experience, that was the basis for playing on the playground. So the day before, we saw an episode of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then the next day at school, the playground became New York City. Some of the friends became Ninja Turtles, others became Shredder and the Foot Soldiers. We had a common lore that we then used to build our own stories, to write our own episodes, and to explore our own imaginations within that specific world. That's kind of what I was hoping to see from this world book. Give me a general setting, provide a core of background, history, some key points in a timeline, and then leave enough room for us to turn our tabletops into various places in the serious sector. And I think the book did that. It gives a history of humanity's arrival in the sector that's both compelling and plausible. And in fact, as I read about that first history of how the humans had that civil war, how they ended up in the serious sector, I found myself wanting to play games in that setting. So who knows, maybe that's on the docket for OnePageRules at some point in the future. Now, something else I think the book does well, and I was looking for this in particular, was how they were going to address the fact that OnePageRules started as a breakoff of 40K, but now it's trying to be its own universe. So many of the factions, the aesthetics, heck, the name of the game itself, all of those were meant to attract 40K players, to build that bridge between the two systems. But with this book, the goal is to establish something totally unique, or at least more unique. So, while I was reading, I didn't want to be constantly comparing it to 40K, but I can't be ignorant of the fact that the vast majority of this lore is derived from 40K. So, I'm pleased to say I think the book does a good job of managing that. For example, there's some stuff you just can't get rid of, like a religious order centered around a woman who attains the status of divinity through her actions and her leadership, or a civil war that ravages Earth and provides the genesis of a brilliant geneticist who creates an army of super soldiers. What I was glad to see, though, was there were lots of places where the lore diverted significantly from the lore of 40K. And best of all, it didn't seem like just playing cast against type, or doing the exact opposite, or doing something outlandish just to say, see, I'm not copying. Instead, we get a universe that connects all those dots, but it doesn't paint the same picture. And it creates a universe that's both believable and exciting. The next item that I was really glad to see was the artwork. There is some fantastic artwork throughout the book. Even in the 13 pages that were given out for free, you've got some really great examples of art that can serve as inspiration for army themes, color schemes, game scenarios, all of that. I was also pleased to see that we finally get a picture of what the Battle Brothers will look like if and when they get their own set of STL files. And the image that's on page 7 at the bottom, I think is one of my absolute favorite. If OnePageRules ever starts selling prints of their artwork, I do believe I'm going to have to get that one to hang up in the kingdom, along with a few others. Only about a quarter of the wall space up here is used, so there's lots of room for more great art. Okay, now lest I be accused of gushing or being a OnePageRules shill, and those are both things that have been suggested on some of my previous videos, this book is far from perfect. In fact, it has some very significant flaws and issues that could possibly affect the future lore development of the game. Not the game itself or the rule set, but the universe in which the lore is created. Now, some of you may have seen on Reddit that one fairly large review that has some serious beef with elements of the book. And after reading that review, and then reading all the book, it's not entirely wrong. Now, despite my promise to myself not to, I was hoping to read the book the first time, just read it through. No notes, no taking any kind of, thoughts or jotting them down. But I just couldn't help it anymore. I grabbed a notepad and started jotting down thoughts, reactions, things like that. At first, I was a bit worried that reading that review on Reddit had colored or influenced me, and kind of like when you buy a red Toyota, suddenly you see all the other red Toyotas on the road. I was worried it was that. But I soon dismissed that idea. The concerns he raised are genuine. And as I started writing notes, reactions, thoughts, musings, really coming to grips with what the book was saying, what I was expecting, things like that, I realized the same thing I realized when I started writing the script for my series comparing OnePageRules and Games Workshop. And that's, I am not going to be able to fit everything in a single video. So the purpose of this video is not only to give my initial reactions and first impressions, but to let everybody know that I plan on doing a much bigger series on the review of the World Book, explaining the good, the bad, and the ugly in all of its glorious detail. Now, I have no idea how big it will be. That's what she said. I don't have any idea how often I'll be posting the videos. All those details I've still got to iron out. However, the free preview included a table of contents. So I'm thinking the plan right now is a video or two for each of those 4 sections. That way, even people who haven't seen the World Book or want to hear a little bit about it, they've got kind of a starting point. They can see the general topic and then the subtopics and get a little better idea of what I'm going to be talking about or what I am talking about in those videos. But who knows? I mean, maybe when I really start diving in and writing the scripts, I might find I need more than just one video per section. I don't think it'll go as far as to need a video on each subheading. That could be a little bit excessive. But some videos are definitely going to be longer than others, and that's the same as it was in the OnePageRules versus Games Workshop series. Some of those videos were 10 to 15 minutes, one was almost an hour. But given that that series was and still is one of the most popular video series on the entire channel, my hope is that I can deliver something of equal quality in this series reviewing the World Book. And before anybody freaks out, I will not be showing artwork, big blocks of text, or anything that's behind a paywall. The goal of my review is not to allow folks to bypass purchasing it. My goal is to simply go into a lot more detail about where it shines and where it's dull. So until then, I still want to recommend the World Book. If you have spent any amount of time playing OnePageRules, or if you plan to continue spending time playing OnePageRules, it's worth a buy. Think of this. Everything the game has provided so far is free. The rules, the army builder, starting bundles on STL. Seriously, there aren't very many other game companies out there that provide all of that for free. And with the game being model agnostic, it is entirely possible that you could enjoy OnePageRules to 90% of its full extent without having to pay a penny. So, why not spend $15, support OnePageRules, and get the World Book? Yeah, it does have some significant issues, but we'll get into that once I get the series rolling. Until then, I'd say the World Book is more than good enough. So keep your dice on the table, and I'll see you next time.